I was a full-time nurse and caregiver, then my jobless brother and his influencer girlfriend tried to steal my room, and my parents took their side. I'm 28, female, and for the past 3 years, I've been living back at home with my parents, both in their 60s, and my younger brother Jake, who's 25. It's definitely not where I pictured myself at this stage in life, but, well, here I am. I guess I should rewind a bit so you can understand how it all happened. 3 years ago, I had a pretty good setup. I was living in a nice apartment downtown, working full-time as a nurse at a busy hospital, and I thought I was in a solid relationship with my boyfriend of 5 years, Mark. We'd even started tossing around the idea of marriage and maybe having kids someday. Then one afternoon, I came home early from a shift and found Mark in bed with one of his co-workers. Just like that, everything fell apart. I ended things with him on the spot, but emotionally, I was wrecked. I couldn't stand being in that apartment anymore. Every corner held a memory of our life together. Around that same time, my dad started having some health problems. He was diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's. It wasn't too advanced yet, but my mom was already struggling to handle things on her own. So I made the choice to move back in with them. At the time, it felt like the right decision. I'd save some money, help out with dad, and give myself a chance to heal. My parents were over the moon to have me back. And for a little while, I'll admit, it was comforting to be surrounded by family during such a tough period. Jake had already moved home about 6 months earlier, right after finishing college. He's always been the favorite, smart, good-looking, effortlessly charming. Our parents never really hid the fact that he was their golden child. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but growing up, the difference in how we were treated was impossible to miss. If Jake got a B on a test, they'd praise him for trying his best. If I got an A, they'd ask why it wasn't an A+. When he chose to major in philosophy, they called him thoughtful and deep. When I said I wanted to become a nurse, they asked if I'd ever considered being a doctor instead. So when Jake came back home without any job lined up, they didn't say a word. They told him he needed time to find himself and explore his options. Meanwhile, I was pulling 12-hour shifts at the hospital, helping out with dad when I got home, and still paying my share of the bills. The first year or so, things were manageable. Jake claimed he was writing a novel and looking for jobs in publishing. I had my doubts. I never actually saw him writing or applying anywhere, but I let it go. I had my own stuff to deal with. I was still trying to piece myself back together after the breakup and adjust to living at home again as a grown adult. But as time went on, Jake's so-called job search looked more like an extended vacation. He'd sleep until noon, then spend most of the day either gaming or hanging out with his friends. Anytime Mom gently suggested he look for work, he'd accuse her of killing his creative spirit. I tried talking to him a few times, even offered to help with his resume or run mock interviews with him. Every time, he brushed me off, saying I didn't get the creative life or that I was just bitter because he had the freedom to follow his dreams. Meanwhile, I was running myself ragged. The hospital only got more intense when COVID hit. I'd come home utterly drained, physically and emotionally, only to find Jake sprawled on the couch, gaming and munching on snacks I'd bought. I brought it up with my parents more than once, but they always had some excuse ready. He's just figuring things out, Mom would say. Or, not everyone's path is as straightforward as yours, sweetheart. It was beyond frustrating. Then, just last week, Jake made an announcement at dinner that left me speechless. He said his girlfriend Megan, she's 23, would be moving in with us. Up until that point, I'd only heard him mention her a couple of times. I had no idea it was serious enough to start playing house. Naturally, my parents were thrilled. They started gushing about how nice it would be to have young love under the roof again, completely ignoring the fact that we were already tight on space. And then Jake dropped the real bomb. Since Megan was moving in, they needed a private room, and since my bedroom was the second largest in the house, he thought it made sense for me to give it up and move down to the basement. I was floored. I turned to my parents, fully expecting them to shut that down. But they were both nodding like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. That's when I lost it. Are you serious? I said. You want me to give up my room for your girlfriend? You don't even have a job. Jake just rolled his eyes. Come on, sis. Don't be so selfish. Megan and I need our space. It's not like you're using the room for anything important. I couldn't believe he said that. Nothing important? I used that room to rest after 12-hour shifts where I'm literally out saving people's lives. What do you do, Jake? Play video games and live off mom and dad? Jake turned red. You don't get it. I'm working on my novel. That takes time and mental energy. Just because I'm not punching a clock doesn't mean I'm not working. Have you written a single word? I shot back. Because all I've seen you do for the last 3 years is play games and hang out. Children, please, my mom interrupted, trying to calm things down. There's no need to fight. I'm sure we can find a compromise. but I was too fired up to let it go. No, Mom, this isn't okay. I work full-time. I pay to live here. I help take care of Dad. And now you want me to move to the basement so Jake and his girlfriend, who haven't contributed a thing, can take over my room? That's not fair, Dad finally spoke up. Jake helps out in his own way. How? I asked, staring him down. Tell me one thing he's done to help this family in the past 3 years. The room went silent. Finally, Jake broke it. You're just bitter because you're single, he said. Maybe if you weren't such a workaholic, you'd have someone too. That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. At least I can support myself, I snapped. I'm not 25 years old and still leeching off my parents. Enough, Mom shouted. Both of you go to your rooms. We'll talk when everyone's calmed down. As I stormed up the stairs that night, I could hear my mom downstairs, comforting Jake. She was telling him not to take what I said too personally. It made me feel like I was 15 again, always the one in trouble, always painted as the difficult one, no matter what. That was a week ago, and since then, the tension in the house has been off the charts. Jake's giving me the silent treatment, which honestly wouldn't bother me, except he's so obvious about it. Every time I walk into a room, he lets out this dramatic sigh or gives me a look like I'm ruining his vibe just by existing. My parents keep trying to play peacemakers, but all that really means is hinting that I should be the one to bend, to make room for Jake and his needs. Yesterday, my mom even said, the basement isn't so bad, we could fix it up for you, make it really cozy. It felt like they were trying to gently nudge me out of my own space. Also, Jake and his girlfriend could settle in like royalty. I can't lie, part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid. Am I the selfish one here? Should I just suck it up and take the basement? I don't want to leave, not just because it's my home, but because of my dad. His Parkinson's isn't advanced yet, but he does need support sometimes, and I'm the one who's usually there when it counts. I worry about him. So, Reddit, be honest, am I the asshole for refusing to give up my room? Update 1. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I've read every reply, and your advice and support really helped me feel seen. I've tried to follow some of the suggestions, but unfortunately, things have only gone downhill. Megan moved in last weekend. My parents practically threw a welcome party for her, cooked a big fancy dinner, even brought out the good china. Meanwhile, I had just come off a grueling night shift and all I wanted was to crawl into bed. But nope, Mom insisted I join them to make Megan feel at home. Dinner was awkward as hell. Jake and Megan were acting like lovesick teenagers, feeding each other bites of food, giggling nonstop. My mom kept going on about how lovely it was to have young love in the house again, while Dad just smiled and nodded like some proud grandfather. I tried to be civil, I really did. I asked Megan what she did for work, what she was into. Turns out, she's currently between jobs after quitting her barista gig to focus on becoming an Instagram influencer. I had to physically stop myself from asking how exactly she planned to pay for anything. The next day, I got home from work and found Jake and Megan camped out in the living room like it was their private theater. They were stretched across the couch, eating snacks, and watching TV, and the coffee table was a disaster: chip bags, soda cans, empty wrappers. When I asked if they could clean up, Jake just rolled his eyes and said, "Relax, sis. We'll get to it later." Spoiler, they didn't. Now, the house feels unbearable. Jake and Megan go out of their way to make me uncomfortable. They'll start kissing loudly on the couch while I'm trying to watch a show, or they'll stand outside my door late at night, giggling and whispering when I'm trying to sleep before a shift. I brought it up with my parents again, hoping maybe they'd finally see how ridiculous things have gotten. But nope, same brick wall. When I pointed out that I'm the only one working full-time and helping financially, my mom actually said, "Well, you've always been more independent than Jake. He just needs a little more time. And Megan is pursuing her dreams, being an influencer is a real job these days, you know." I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Mom," I said, "Jake's had 3 years to find himself, and Megan has 127 Instagram followers. That's not a career, that's a hobby." Her face went cold. "I think you're just jealous," she said. "Jake and Megan are young and in love. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Maybe if you weren't so wrapped up in work, you would have found someone too." That hit harder than I expected. Is that what they really think of me? That I'm just some bitter, lonely workaholic? Now, I'm seriously thinking about moving out, even though the thought of leaving Dad behind fills me with guilt. The house I grew up in doesn't feel like home anymore. But if I stay, I'm miserable. If I go, I'll be worried all the time. Who's going to help Dad when he has a rough day? Who's going to make sure he's taking his meds on time? My mom tries, but she's not always the most organized, and I don't trust Jake and Megan to handle anything responsibly. What if they throw a party or do something dumb while I'm not there? It's like no matter what I choose, I lose. Update 2. Things have gone from bad to worse. I've started looking for apartments, but it's tearing me up inside thinking about leaving Dad. I keep thinking back to last month, when he had a bad day and slipped in the shower. I was the one who heard him calling for help, the one who got him up and made sure he was okay. What if something like that happens again, and I'm not around? Meanwhile, Jake's doubled down on trying to kick me out of my room. He's now telling our parents that Megan is claustrophobic and needs more space. I know that's a lie. Megan's never said anything like that, and I've seen her squeeze into tiny booths at restaurants and dressing rooms without a second thought. But, of course, my parents bought it. They've started dropping more hints about the basement, how it could be transformed into a cute little retreat. My mom even left home decor magazines on my bed, open to spreads about cozy basement makeovers. Subtle, right? I've tried to hold my ground, but it's wearing me down. The other day, I overheard my mom talking to my aunt on the phone. She was saying how worried she was about me, how I seemed angry all the time and couldn't be happy for Jake. It stung hearing her talk about me like I was the problem, like I was just some bitter sister who couldn't stand seeing her brother happy. But the real breaking point came yesterday. I just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital, a rough one. We lost a patient, a young guy, not much older than me. I was drained, physically and emotionally. All I wanted was a hot shower and to crawl into bed. But when I walked into my room, I stopped dead. Jake and Megan had moved some of their stuff in. There were boxes on my bed, clothes hanging in my closet. For a second, I actually thought I'd walked into the wrong room. When I confronted them, Jake had the nerve to say, "We figured you'd be cool with sharing until you move out. You're barely here anyway with all your shifts." I lost it. I yelled at them to get out, to take their stuff and leave my room. Megan started crying, calling me mean and unfair. Jake threw his arm around her and looked at me like I was the one causing the scene. Then Mom showed up, asking what all the noise was about. And instead of backing me up, she scolded me, lectured me, really, about being more thoughtful toward Jake and Megan. "They're a young couple," she said, like that explained everything. "She needs her space," my mom told me. "Why can't you just understand that?" I stared at her, stunned. "And what about my space?" I said. "What about what I need? I'm pulling 12-hour shifts at the hospital, saving lives, and I come home to find I don't even have a guaranteed place to sleep." She let out this long, weary sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Family is about compromise. Jake and Megan are just beginning their journey together. Don't you want to support your brother?" I could hardly believe it. "And what about supporting me?" I asked. "I'm your daughter too. Or have you forgotten that?" Her expression shifted, part disappointment, part sadness. "Of course I haven't forgotten," she said quietly. "But you've always been the strong one. You've always managed. Jake's different, he needs more support." I was speechless. What do you even say when your own mother basically tells you that because you're strong, your needs matter less? I love my family, I really do. But I feel like I'm suffocating in this house. The unfairness has crept into everything, and I catch myself snapping over the smallest things. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to become. And as much as it hurts, I think it's time for me to move out for my own sanity. But the guilt? It's heavy, crushing, even. Am I abandoning them? Am I being selfish for finally choosing myself? I don't have the answers. All I know is I feel completely alone, surrounded by people who don't seem to see me at all. Update 3. Well, I finally did it. I moved out. After Jake and Megan started bringing their stuff into my room without even asking, it was the last straw. I realized I couldn't stay in that house any longer, not without it slowly destroying my mental health. The stress was starting to bleed into my job, and that's not something I can afford. People's lives depend on me being focused. I couldn't keep risking mistakes because of the drama I left behind each morning. Apartment hunting wasn't easy. I wanted to stay close by so I could still help out with Dad, but rent in our area is outrageous. Eventually, I found a small one-bedroom about 15 minutes away. It's not big, and it's not fancy, but it's mine. And more than anything, it's quiet, peaceful, safe. Telling my parents I was leaving was brutal. My mom cried and asked why I was walking away from the family. My dad just looked heartbroken and confused. Jake, meanwhile, looked like a kid on Christmas morning. He wasted no time talking about how he and Megan were going to redecorate my room. The day I packed up felt surreal. I hadn't realized how many memories were stuffed into my drawers and tucked in the corners of that house. I found old photo albums, Jake and me as little kids, our parents smiling at the beach or by the Christmas tree. It hurt realizing how far things had drifted. My parents helped me move, but the air was thick with unspoken feelings. My mom kept dropping hints like, "Well, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back." Jake and Megan? They had plans and couldn't be bothered to lift a finger. I've been in my new place for about 2 weeks now, and honestly, it's still a bit of a blur. Some days, I feel this nagging guilt in the pit of my stomach, especially when I think about Dad. I call him every day, and I visit on weekends, but it's not the same. I still worry about him all the time. But there's also this new, unfamiliar feeling I haven't had in years: relief. I hadn't realized how tightly wound I'd been until I was finally out of that environment. Now I can come home, kick off my shoes, and not have to brace myself for chaos or confrontation. No loud arguments, no fake affection in the living room, no snide looks when I ask for basic respect. Yesterday, my dad called. He sounded tired. He told me he missed having me around and mentioned that Jake and Megan have been arguing a lot lately. Apparently, Megan's influencer career isn't exactly taking off, and now she's pushing Jake to get a real job. Jake's resisting, of course, says he needs to focus on his writing. I felt my heart sink. Dad's stuck in the middle, and all that stress isn't good for him. I offered to come by more during the week, but he said he didn't want to burden me. That hit me hard. He's never been the type to ask for help, and hearing him say that made me feel like I'd let him down, even if I know I did what I had to do. Later, I called my mom to check in. She was polite, but distant. She asked about my apartment, my work schedule, but her voice was flat. Toward the end of the call, she sighed and said, "I just don't understand why you couldn't work things out with Jake and Megan. Families are supposed to stick together." I tried, again, to explain how toxic it had all become. That I wasn't trying to abandon anyone, I just couldn't keep sacrificing myself to keep the peace. But she didn't really respond. Just said she hoped I'd come to my senses and move back home someday. It's like they've decided I'm the villain in this story. That I left out of spite or selfishness instead of survival. Even now, that guilt still lingers. Every time I unlock the door to my quiet little apartment, I wonder, did I do the right thing? Should I have stayed longer, tried harder, been more patient? But then I remember what it felt like to live there. The constant stress, the emotional exhaustion, the total lack of respect. And I know deep down I made the right call. Now I'm slowly building something new. I still go visit my dad every weekend, and I'm teaching him how to use video chat so we can talk more often during the week. It's not the same, but it's something. Jake and I haven't spoken since I left. A part of me misses him, the version of him that used to be my kid brother. But another part of me still carries the hurt from how little he valued everything I did. A few days ago, Megan messaged me on social media. She said she was sorry for how things turned out and that she hoped we could be friends. I haven't responded. I don't know if she's truly sorry or if she's just starting to realize that living with my parents isn't the dream she thought it would be. As for me, I'm focused on moving forward. I've started volunteering at a local animal shelter on my days off, which has been surprisingly healing. I'm also thinking about going back to school part-time to advance in my nursing career. For the first time in a long time, I can actually think about my goals, my future. Still, there are nights when I lie awake, second-guessing everything. Was I wrong for standing my ground? For not giving up my room? For walking away when it felt like no one else cared about how I was being treated? I replay it all in my mind, what I said, what they said, what I could have done differently. I don't know if I'll ever stop wondering. But one thing I do know, I can't go back to that life. That version of me, the one who stayed quiet and gave up everything for everyone else, she's gone. So here I am, starting this new chapter, trying to find peace with my decision. I still hope that one day things will improve between me and my family. Maybe Jake will finally grow up. Maybe my parents will see that they enabled the imbalance. Or maybe nothing will change, and I'll have to come to terms with that. Either way, I'm choosing to take care of myself now and my dad, in the ways I still can. I'm learning to forgive myself for leaving. I'm learning that it's okay to put my own well-being first sometimes. It's not easy, but I'm working on it. So, Reddit, now that you've heard the full story, do you think I was wrong? Did I make the right call by moving out, or should I have found a way to make it work? I'm still wrestling with those questions, and hearing your perspective might help. Thanks for listening. Writing all of this out has been more healing than I expected.